Before anyone says it, it's not clickbait, it's a prediction. And I mean every single word of it. I think that Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to re-sign with the Milwaukee Bucks this offseason and sign the supermax extension as a result of a number of moves that the Bucks have already made, including a video that I've already made talking about the Jrue Holiday trade, but also bringing in Bogdanovic seemingly out of nowhere. And the multitude of moves that the Bucks have made, the commitment that they have shown to winning, I think is going to result in Giannis signing the supermax extension this offseason and guaranteeing that he will be in Milwaukee for at least the next couple of seasons. And that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. But really quickly before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, then consider subscribing. I upload normally twice a day, every day, but during the craziness that is this week in the NBA, it's probably going to be even more often than that. So if you're looking for a place for consistent NBA content, this is a great place to be. You can also leave a like rating on the video. Helps me out a ton, helps the video get out to more people on YouTube as well. And you can hang out with me at the various socials at the bottom of the screen, including twitch.tv/Spolo_TD, where I'll be streaming at 11 a.m. Eastern time today. A ton of you guys came out to the stream yesterday, and I'll just be live reacting again to all of the all the trade craziness that has been happening in the NBA will probably continue to happen today as well. But with all those things said, let's just go ahead and get into it. And I first want to talk about this Bogdanovic trade because it definitely deserves a little bit of the spotlight here. And then I'll get to the wider perspective here of Giannis staying in Milwaukee. In my opinion, I think it's almost guaranteed now that he is going to sign the Supermax extension. So the Bogdanovic deal. I woke up at almost midnight Eastern time last night to make that Jrue Holiday video thinking, oh man, this is going to be the big move of the night. The Bucks are going to be done making moves after this. Let's go ahead and make this video, talk about Jrue Holiday. And for those of you that missed it, you can check it out. But basically, my opinion was that, you know, this was a move that the Bucks pretty much had to make. And yes, they gave up a lot, and normally Jrue Holiday is not worth that many picks. But if it means that Giannis is going to stay and it means that you're helping your team push further towards a championship, then I think it's a move that you have to make. And then obviously for New Orleans, getting that many assets in exchange for Holiday was a win for them. Now, as we get to the Bogdanovic trade, I don't fully understand this one from the Kings' perspective. For the Bucks, it's another great fit. Bogdanovic is someone that can play make, he can shoot, and creates a really, really good five-man lineup with Holiday, Middleton, Bogdanovic, Giannis, and Brook Lopez. They don't really have anybody else on the roster, but that five-man group is pretty good, right? And yes, they had to give up Donte DiVincenzo, who's a player that I really, really like and I think is going to be a good player. Not ever going to be an all-star or anything, but still a good player. And then DJ Wilson, who hasn't done anything in the league, and Ersan Ilyasova. And I felt like that really wasn't that much value in exchange for Bogdanovic. He's still a good player, and I'm not saying that you're going to get anything crazy for him, but basically just getting DiVincenzo in exchange is a bit worrisome for me if I was a Kings fan, because it seemed like they were motivated to bring back Bogdanovic and trade potentially Buddy Hield and remedy that situation in that way. But it looks like there's now going to be a sign and trade involving Bogdanovic, and I don't necessarily think that means that the Kings are guaranteed to keep Hield. I guess they just thought that they were getting good value here, and they didn't know if they were going to be able to re-sign Bogdanovic to a deal that he would have been happy with. And obviously Milwaukee felt confident that they could do that. So I love the trade for the Bucks. I honestly can't believe they were able to bring in Bogdanovic for the assets that they traded. And for the Kings, I think this is kind of an L. As much as I like DiVincenzo, I feel like you could have gotten more. Now, as it relates to Giannis, I firmly believe now, as of 8:49 a.m. Eastern time here on November 17th, 2020, I think that Giannis is going to sign his Supermax extension before the deadline, which I believe is the 21st of December off the top of my head. Here's the reason why. I think you can kind of read between the lines here a little bit that Milwaukee is trying to deliver on a promise that they made to Giannis, because this happens all the time when players, especially big time players, are going to be upcoming free agents. They have meetings with their team and they're like, yeah, we're committed to winning. We're going to get you pieces. We're going to get you pieces. And then those pieces end up being like Timofey Mozgov or something. You know what I mean? Like it's pieces, but it's not really what you're looking for. And the Bucks went out there and they said, hey, Giannis, we are committed to building a championship contender here, and we're going to make sure that this is the best place for you to be. We're going to go out. We're going to give up a ton of draft capital for Jrue Holiday. We're going to go out and we're going to give up a promising young player in DiVincenzo to get a more proven player in Bogdanovic and create a really, really good starting lineup that not only fits really well, but also allows some of the offensive responsibility to fall on some other guys so that Giannis doesn't have to do so much, whether it be in the regular season or in the postseason. And I'm not positive that you make the Holiday move if you don't feel pretty confident that Giannis is going to stay. Because if Giannis stays, then the value of those picks is pretty much irrelevant. But if he leaves, obviously they're going to be, much higher picks. So that's a move that you can look at and think, do they know ahead of time that all they have to do is nudge Giannis in the right direction a little bit and he's going to re-sign? I feel like, yeah, that's the case. And then Bogdanovic is just the icing on the cake, and they're creating a roster that is going to be really, really dangerous. I don't really know what they're going to do with everybody outside of this starting five. I already read it out earlier in the video, but they don't really have anybody else on the roster. And I tweeted this yesterday. Every single player that was on the roster when the trade restriction was lifted yesterday at noon Eastern time, there was, 10 players on the roster. Every single one of them either opted out of their player option for next season, those being Robin Lopez and Wes Matthews, or was traded in one of the two Bucks trades yesterday, with the exception of Giannis, Chris Middleton, and Brook Lopez. They traded away Bledsoe. They traded away George Hill. They traded away Ersan Ilyasova, DJ Wilson. You go on and on and on down the list. Every single one of those guys was moved. And it is in an effort to retain Giannis, and I think it's an effort that ultimately is going to be successful. And this is an outcome that I think people kind of forgot about to this point, because I've said this in the video. I thought that Giannis was going to wait it out until 2021, not sign the supermax, and see what's out there in free agency, because that's typically how these things go. But the further and further we get into this, I think we're realizing that this Giannis Bucks situation is less than typical as it relates to, superstar free agency choices. And this option of him just signing the supermax this offseason and kind of getting rid of all the suspense for 2021 as it relates to him specifically is one that I think is becoming more and more likely. Like, this is a guy that is going to be able to sign a contract worth almost $50 million a season for the next 5 seasons to be on a roster that now has a ton of talent, and talent that fits a lot better. Like, the prospect of running it back next year with Eric Bledsoe as your point guard, in comparison to having Jrue Holiday and Bogdan Bogdanovic now on this roster, while giving up, in terms of core players, Bledsoe, Hill, and DiVincenzo, that feels like a really, really good switch if I'm Giannis. I feel much better about the roster if I'm a Bucks fan and if I'm Giannis this morning. And if I'm a Bucks fan, I'm incredibly hopeful that within the next month, Giannis is going to re-sign a long-term deal to stay with the Milwaukee Bucks, which would be a huge, huge accomplishment, because time and time again, we've seen big-time players like Giannis leave franchises exactly like Milwaukee, that get a player that is once in a generation for them, and they don't get these kinds of opportunities often, and they screw it up, and they don't put the right pieces around them, or that player just wants to leave and thinks that they have better opportunities elsewhere, whether that be financially or competitively. And if this ends up being the case, which I'm predicting is going to happen, Giannis is going to sign the supermax, it would be, I don't think it's an overstatement to say that it is one of the biggest moves that any team has made in the last 10 years in the NBA, to be able to continue to bring in pieces to keep Giannis in Milwaukee. Because I've said this in the past in previous videos, like, if you get Giannis on a 5-year deal, you're guaranteed to be at least close to a championship contender for every single one of those seasons, unless something drastic happens to your roster. As long as you're healthy, and especially now with this new group, if they can re-sign these players, being Bogdanovic obviously in the sign and trade, and then Jrue Holiday next offseason, you're pretty much guaranteed to be a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference and be in the mix every season, which for a team like Milwaukee is incredibly, incredibly powerful. Now, moving forward with this roster, there's no guarantee that this is going to work perfectly, right? There's going to be some adjustments made. Holiday's had a bit of a spotty injury history in the past, and defensively, even though they've always found a way to be near the top of the league in defensive rating, that still could be an issue for this team, at least initially, once they try and get everybody on the same page because of the quick turnaround of the season, not going to have traditional training camps. Defense could be an issue not only from a personnel standpoint, but also just in terms of a continuity standpoint. Typically, Budenholzer, his teams figure it out, but we'll just have to see. Also, of course, depth is going to be an issue. They currently have 5 players plus like Justin James, who they got in the Kings trade, on the roster. And so they're going to need to find minimum guys. They're going to need to find middle level exception guys, because their payroll is going to be way, way up there, especially for next year once Giannis does sign the supermax, if that is the way that it breaks down. So in terms of depth, and initially in terms of defense, it seems like there's going to be issues on this roster, but offensively they have solved so many issues, especially as it relates to postseason offense, just simply by getting Eric Bledsoe off of the roster. And I love this group now in Milwaukee, strictly just the 5-man group. But we've seen lately now that honestly, depth might not be as critical as we think that it is, because we just saw one of the most top heavy teams that we've had in the last handful of years in the NBA win a title in LA with Anthony Davis and LeBron James. Now, the Bucks don't have a 1-2 punch even close to that on this roster, but the entire starting five feels very, very strong to me. It feels like a group that can certainly contend, and I'm interested, I'm invested, and I'm throwing my hands up. I think Giannis is staying. I think you can stop free agency predictions for 2021 for him, and within a month he'll be signing a new contract with the Bucks. I truly believe that. But that is going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you all very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.